Hello, how are you doing? Another great recipe for you here today. This is the season to be foraging, to be finding your ingredients out there in the wilds, in the wilderness. So today's recipe is using things that we forage outside. And this is a recipe I have been creating over the past few months. I have mastered this recipe. So join me today as we make rose petal sparkling wine. Rose petal sparkling wine is up there with all the best rosé sparkling wines and proseccos and champagnes that you'd have made. It beats Elderflower sparkling wine hands down. This is my go-to staple sparkling wine of choice. I will be making a video on Elderflower sparkling wine down the road, so stay tuned for that one. But you can follow along this recipe and substitute the rose petal flowers for elderflowers. Same principle applies. I want to be able to pass on the best of my knowledge to you, so I'll be making this video in two parts. The first video is going to be about how to make your base wine, be it rose petal or elderflower. Then the second video is going to be how to give the wine that fizz, that sparkle, and bottle it in a safe way so your bottles don't explode on you, and also so your wine does not have any sediment and any cloudiness. It's going to be the best sparkling wine you have ever made. There are quite a few different methods of making a sparkling wine, but I think this is the simplest, easiest and most effective way of making a sparkling wine. So the first thing we need to do is go and pick our rose petals or your elderflowers. To make a 1 gallon batch of this sparkling rose petal or elderflower wine, you will be needing about 3 pints of rose petals or elderflowers. If you are using dried rose petals or dried elderflowers, you want about 50 grams of dried petals. And once you've made sure that there are no added extra protein sources amongst your petals, you want to place them into a fermentation bucket. And then you want to be adding 1 banana to the mix. Add the peel as well, it's always good. It gives off extra body and extra flavour to the rose petals. The plain rose petals do need a bit of an oomph behind them. They are a very delicate flavour. So for the sparkling wine, you want to be adding a bit more of the base notes, and a banana does that really, really well. And slicing the rest of your banana. Sparkling wines are not difficult to make, but they do take time. If you ever see a recipe saying you can make a sparkling wine in a week or 2 weeks, please don't do that recipe. Because all they are asking you to do is bottle an unfinished wine. You're going to end up with a very cloudy wine, and one way you can't guarantee that the bubbles and the fizz are going to be constant in your glass. The bubble size isn't going to be brilliant. It's going to be fizzy but not bubbly, because you have bottled wine that has not finished fermenting yet. Therefore you can't control the rate it's going to have a secondary fermentation in the bottle, nor would the wine be clear, nor would it be matured. You're making a very quick, unfinished wine and putting it in the bottle prematurely. Yes, it will be alcoholic, and yes, it will be fizzy, but it's not going to be a decent quality sparkling wine. And if you're making a sparkling wine, you are going to want to serve it at special occasions or as a celebratory drink. So go the full hog and take your time with it and make a really good wine. That's what I'm really keen on, helping people to make better wine, to make good wine. And one of the key elements of making good country wine or wine at home is that you do not rush the process. So now, what else do we need to add? To your rose petals or elderflowers, if you're doing an elderflower wine version, and your banana, you want to add 1.2 to 1.3 kilos of sugar. The differential in the sugar quantities depends if you prefer a slightly sweeter sparkling wine or a drier sparkling wine. For me personally, I prefer a drier drink, so I'm adding 1.2 kilos of granulated sugar. And simply pour it on top of your rose petals, elderflowers, and the banana. And now you want to be adding 1 tea bag to the mix, because that really helps the tannin level of the wine. It's going to give it a great mouthfeel. It's going to complement the banana. It's going to make your wine extra awesome. And now, pour over 2 litres of boiling water and give it a really good stir. Get all that sugar dissolved. Get all of the colour coming out from your rose petals, or all of that flavour coming out from your elderflowers. With your sugar being all dissolved, you now want to top it up to the 5 litre mark with cold water. Give it another quick stir and put the lid back on and allow it to cool to room temperature. Then add your yeast. Your yeast is going to be your own personal preference. It depends what you have available, but you do not want to use a very high alcohol wine yeast. You want to be using a wine that has an alcohol tolerance of about 12 to 14%. The reason for this will be explained later on down the track when we start adding the fizz to the sparkling wine. So go and have a cup of tea whilst you wait for your wine to cool. So, it should be cool enough by now. You've had a cup of tea. Pour in your yeast. Cover it over and set it aside in a warm place. And with it in a warm place, you want to stir it for 3 to 5 days. Get those rose petals or elderflowers submerged daily. Get a decent amount of oxygen into the wine to help the yeast multiply and have a really good party. And then in 5 days' time, you want to come back to your bucket and we'll carry on with the next step. Typical Blue Peter style, here's one I've made earlier. I made this 5 days ago, so I can proceed with showing you how to carry on with the wine. First thing we need to do now is to go and sanitize a demijohn. So I'll be back in a moment with this spotlessly clean demijohn, nicely sanitized. And we're ready to move on and rack all the liquid from your fermentation vessel into the demijohn. Oh, that is Turkish delight. That is rosy. That is fantastic. Oh, gonna be great. This is. So right then, siphon tube in. This would make an awesome Valentine's Day drink. A lovely bottle of sparkling wine, rosé, bright pink sparkling wine for Valentine's Day. For your husband, for your wife, for whoever identifies as a wine drinker. So what we need to do now is set this aside to carry on fermenting until the specific gravity drops to below 1.000 on your hydrometer. Wait for that to happen, then rattle off the sediment, and then you want to let this stand and mature and clear for about 2 months. None of this racking your wine prematurely whilst it's still cloudy, whilst it's still fermenting. You do not want to be bottling a cloudy wine. You do not want to be bottling a wine that is not ready to be bottled. Sparkling wines should represent the very best of your abilities. All wine should be that you make, but if you're going for a celebratory drink, make it special. The rest of this video is going to be made when this has cleared, fermentation has stopped, and it's ready to be bottled as you would any other wine. Clear, bright, fermentation has stopped, tasting good, flocculation of the yeast has occurred. So join me for that video as and when I make it. And if you're going to make a sparkling wine this year, be it rose petal or elderflower, enjoy it and make it the best wine you can possibly make. See you all soon. Have fun now.